kids, welcome back. I have a new background. If you didn't see it, it says Merry Grinchmas. Super cute. I'm the Grinch, kind of. Alright, are you ready for another Christmas story? Just like my old times, all my other videos, I'm going to read it and then I'll show you the picture each page before I turn it. This one is probably the longest book or story for Christmas that we have read yet. But come back and see me tomorrow, because tomorrow I'm reading The Night Before Christmas on Christmas Eve for all of you. I'll try to do it very early for you so you can watch it well before bed if you need to. Alright, but tonight we are reading The Fir Tree. Looks like a good one. I've never actually read this story yet, so we're learning it together. This is a really big book, so I have to read it and then show you. If you need to get a snack, hit the pause button, get a juice box and some snacks, and we'll read this story together, okay? Are you ready? Alright, The Fir Tree. In the heart of a beautiful forest, on a pretty hillside, there stood a little fir tree. Although it was young, the fir tree's trunk was strong and its branches were mossy green. Fine trees towered all around it, standing side by side like brothers. Every afternoon, children would run in and out of the woods, picking wild strawberries. The hillside echoed with the sound of their laughter and songs. Days like these should have made the fir tree feel contented, but instead, all the fir tree could think about was the day when it would be as big and strong as the tree standing beside it. Oh, so it's just a little baby. It's not quite as tall as the other ones. All right. When summer passed to winter, flurries of snowflakes whirled all around, but the fir tree found no joy in the glittering carpet of snow that appeared. Even when a robin redbreast sat on the tree's branches, which is the robin bird, and began a cheery song, its spirits could not be lifted. "Be quiet," grumbled the fir tree. "Perch elsewhere." The fir tree had no time for songbirds. It was too busy imagining itself reaching up to the sky far above. Every time it looked up at the grown-up trees, the fir tree would give another little sigh. What a feeling it must be to sway back and forth like they do. It would think, how much longer until it's my turn to be big and strong? Just like the tree, they're in a hurry to grow up just like you kids, huh? How many times have you wished that you were older so you could do what you want, or that you could reach things? The tree wishes the same thing. It's a grumpy little tree. Doesn't even let the birds perch on it. Maybe it's a Grinch. 2 more winters passed, and the fir tree grew taller, but it still wasn't as big as it felt it should be. "Hurry up, branches, grow," it complained. One day, woodcutters rode into the forest. The little fir tree watched as they felled the grown-up trees and trimmed off their branches. The big trunks were lifted into carts and dragged away. "Oh my!" gasped the fir tree, wondering where the other trees had gone. When the winter snow melted and the days got warmer, storks came to the hillside. The fir tree asked about their travels. "I flew south across the ocean," said one bird. "I soared over ships with masts of timber, tall and sturdy, just like these pines. Perhaps they once grew in a place like this." The fir tree imagines itself as a mast on a magnificent ship. It yearned to tower above the deck and look down on the sailors below. Oh, so I was wondering what it was going to be when it grew up. Would somebody come and cut it down and make it into a giant ship? What's going to happen? Oh my God, they're sticking together. Year by year, the fir tree kept growing, and it began to notice new things. Every year, after the first flurry of snowflakes, the woodcutters rode into the forest. At this time of year, they ignored the giants of the hillside. They chopped down the smaller, younger trees instead. "Why have those trees been chosen?" wondered the fir tree. This time, instead of stripping off their branches, the men carefully laid the felled trees on a cart and took them away. "What is happening?" the fir tree demanded. Some sparrows told the fir tree that they had seen in the town at the end of the forest trail. It's Christmas time, they chirped. Those trees will be placed in a grand house and covered with beautiful decorations. We see them every year. Ooh, so will it grow up and be someone's Christmas tree? Or will it be a ship? What's going to happen to the fir tree? From that moment on, the fir tree had a new ambition, to be a glorious Christmas tree. If only Christmas would come right now, it sighed. The fir tree could think of nothing else. Winter thawed into spring, and spring bloomed into summer, but the fir tree barely noticed. As the forest bloomed, the fir tree also stretched and grew. It was now both tall and handsome. Walkers, hunters, and couples would all stop beside its branches. Look at this one, they would say, gazing at its perfect shape and glistening evergreen needles. What a beauty! So it's growing up to be a beautiful tree. Look, it is. It would make a perfect Christmas tree, wouldn't it? Nice and thick. Especially if it's a blue spruce. When Christmas came around the next year, the fir tree was the very first tree to be cut down and laid on the back of a woodcutter's cart. Suddenly, it was sad to be leaving the forest. Stay calm, said the fir. The fir tree told itself firmly. Think about the warm drawing room. Think about those twinkling decorations. More and more trees were put on the cart. There were barely any room to breathe. Then the horse began to trot back down the forest track, pulling the cart behind it. Finally, the cart stopped in a cobbled yard peppered with snow. This must be the town, decided the fir tree, remembering the sparrows and their stories. But where are the decorations? So it got cut down, and now it's on its way to town. Look at the cute little squirrelies. What's going to happen? Is it going to get to be a tree? All the trees were unpacked from the cart and lined up side by side against a brick wall. What will become of me now? Wondered the fir tree, as a man stopped to look him up and down. Yes, that's the tree for us, he nodded when he got to the fir tree. The man carried the fir tree across the yard into a fine building. Soon the tree found itself in a drawing room filled with oil paintings, sofas, and a grand piano. A small crowd of children watched excitedly. The fir tree was placed in a tub filled with sand. Then a jolly green cloth was tied around the base. Now it feels like Christmas, smiled the young lady carrying a wooden box. When she lifted the lid, the children gasped. Inside there were velvet ribbons, glass baubles, candy-striped canes, and fir cones painted silver and gold. Gather around, said the lady, and join in, everyone. Look, the fir tree got picked. Got to be a Christmas tree just like it wanted. The boys and girls laughed and sang carols as they hung up the pretty trinkets. When they finished, a butler in a smart jacket placed a gold star at the top. The fir tree was transformed. It had never looked so splendid. It's lovely, smiled the little girl with rosy cheeks. The tree listened as the butler knelt down to whisper in her ear. You wait until tonight, he said with a smile. Tonight this tree will shine from top to bottom. The fir tree was filled with wonder. It could hardly wait for night to arrive. There he is. He got all of his decorations. He got what he wanted. He wanted to be a Christmas tree. Look at all the pretty bulbs. Oh my goodness. And the star on top. Pretty ornaments. Yay, got to be a tree. What's going to happen? Soon the butler and his servants began to light up the decorations. Reflections on the glass bulbs sent fleckles of light spinning across the ceiling. It's the most beautiful thing I have ever seen, declared the little girl with rosy cheeks. The children skipped around the fir tree, pointing at the sparkling decorations. Their stories, games, and singing lasted for hours. Just before bedtime, a man clapped his hands. You've been very patient, he smiled. Now it's time to take a trinket from the tree. Merry Christmas, everyone. The children jostled around the fir tree, racing to pull presents and treats off its branches. I hope they stop soon, thought the fir tree, or my branches will be bare. When the children had gone to bed, there was barely a present or a treat left on the tree. It felt dried out and thin. Never mind, the fir tree said, trying to comfort itself. You can do it all again tomorrow. The fir tree dreamed all night about the fun it was going to have at the next party. Ooh, so they had presents and treats in there, and they took them all off. All the kids did. Will they get more? In the morning, the fir tree watched a maid open the shutters in the drawing room. Morning sunlight streamed in through the windows. "At last!" exclaimed the fir tree. It stood as straight as it could, waiting for more presents and treats to be placed on its burrows. Instead, the maid slowly pulled the remaining ornaments off it. The fir tree winced as each one was dusted off and packed away into a box. "What is the meaning of this?" said the fir tree. When the butler took down the tree, dragged it into the attic, and locked the door, after a while the fir tree began to wonder if it had been forgotten. "The ground is hard at this time of year," it thought to itself. "They must be waiting until the spring comes before they plant me again. Yes, that must be it. How thoughtful." The fir tree clung to this hope as the days passed. In those quiet moments, it remembered its time in the forest. It wondered if it would ever see the robin redbreast again or hear its merry song. They took all the ornaments off, put them in the box. One day, a nest of mice broke the lonely silence of the attic. "Hello, hello," squeaked one. "Where do you come from, old fir tree?" The fir tree bristled. "I come from the most beautiful place, and I am hardly old," it retorted. A mouse twitched its whiskers inquisitively. "Tell us about this beautiful place," it said. The fir tree told the mice about the hillside where it had grown up. It explained how there were big, beautiful trees as far as they could see. "How lucky you have been," gasped the mouse. "That isn't all," agreed the fir tree. "I have stood in the best room of this very house, with a light shining on each branch." The mice squeaked in awe. The mice are living in the tree now. At least they got company, right? Each day the mice listened patiently to every detail of the fir tree's magical evening in the drawing room. The fir tree delighted in telling the tale over and over. "That was such a merry time," it would say wistfully at the end. "The happiest night of my life." The visitors all agreed that the fir tree had been very lucky indeed. After a while, even the curious mice had heard enough. By the time spring arrived, the fir tree was alone once again. One fine morning, the attic door rattled open. "At last!" cried the fir tree. "Now I can get back outside and start growing again." The fir tree was carried out into the yard where it had stood months before. Outside, the sun glistened and the cool air danced through its branches. The fir tree wondered where it was going to be planted. Bye-bye, little miceys. What's going to happen to the tree now? But a different fate awaited the fir tree. The maid tossed it into a heap of nettles in the corner of the yard, then dashed off. "This can't be right," gasped the fir tree. "I still have lots of growing to do." As the fir tree lay on its side, it noticed that its lovely evergreen hue had faded into a dull brown. "If only I had enjoyed my time on the hillside instead of wasting it," sighed the fir tree. With that, a gardener appeared. The fir tree was chopped into pieces, thrown into the kitchen stove, and burned. Yet as the wood cracked and popped, the fir tree saw things clearly for the first time. It remembered the robin and the scent of the forest. It gave thanks for the beauty it had seen in its life. Soon it would be another tree's turn to be admired. It would stand glorious and majestic for one perfect night. Little robin. This is sad. I don't know if I like this story. That's the end of it. Poor tree, right? Maybe the moral of the story is instead of putting our trees out to the curb at the end of Christmas, we should plant them in our yard so they don't be sad all winter like that. Poor fir tree. Treat your Christmas trees better out there, kids. I love you all. Have a very Merry Christmas. And be good because Santa's watching and you still have one more full day. You could make the naughty list if you're not good, right? So be good, be thankful, give everybody a hug, and be happy. Because Christmas is in, well, one more sleep for you. See you next time. Love and light. Bye.